This one they actually knew the aesthetic they were going for. They researched it really well, and they actually looked into artists who were already building things that they wanted to use. Much like the computer system up there, the keyboard, they went and found with Geomancer that they got him to make their computer system. So they knew very much the aesthetic they were looking for. They've kept it true. And they've actually improved upon it. Like the second season gets even more steampunk because they're like, ooh, these people love this. Yay!
And they literally call this a Tesla gun. I mean,
and that goes back to the anachronism stuff as well, because they're taking the historical figure and their mantras.
And clearly, Tesla won. Wow.
Tesla has
well, clearly we know who won. Maybe one of them was slightly insane. Either way, whatever. But well, now you have a Tesla gun, so that kind of changes up who won. But this is very subculture. No one else has a Tesla gun, they use real guns, but people in the warehouse have access to this sort of hidden tech.
And again, this goes back to the what if. The Warehouse 13, more than almost any other show, is really big on the what if anachronism of like, well, what if Tesla didn't just like focus on making a generator that was better than Edison's? What if he made a gun and we have it and we use it? Like every
alternate current.
Yep. Everything that they focus on in each episode is definitely a what if. What if Alice in Wonderland was a mirror? What if like, so it's a very big steampunk movie. Next slide. My absolute favorite TV show. This was originally designed not necessarily steampunk, but the idea was Wild West and outer space. They took very much from the idea of a space cowboy. Han Solo was like the original space cowboy, the space opera, and they wanted to kind of take that and make it a little bit more literal. Joss Whedon really loved old westerns and thought he'd kind of twist it. A lot of his stuff, actually, if you look at all his work, is a lot of combination. And this is the most visual depiction of that combination. The visual aesthetic, the brown coats. You want to make sure that everything has a brown palette. You use color immensely. You move throughout the ship. Each room has a different color scheme, but it keeps a very simple aesthetic, a very utilitarian, very gritty. You know that everything in this set was worked on, hammered through, probably cobbled together. You see all the scenes in the engine room where things are pulled apart. It's very steampunk when you have that DIY mentality.
If you look at Matt, right, the pants, the suspenders, the shirt, the belt, the holster, how many steampunks do you see wearing something similar to that?
Actually, if you look at the picture up here, this could be a Western. Like the aesthetic is incredibly Western. That could be from any Western movie. But
of all the other things that we talk about, we tend to get flopped on Firefly a lot more than we thought we ever would.
Yeah.
But the main reason behind that is because, oh, it takes place in space, oh, it's in the future, and that can happen. I mean,
it's not an airship, it's a spaceship.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is with steampunk, and again, it's if you think it's steampunk, you can argue the case, then you're probably right. It's an umbrella term. Did Joss Whedon sit down and say, I'm going to write a steampunk web series? It'll be delightful. No, he was like, I want to take these two things and put them together. And I like these things, so here we go. And I want this visual aesthetic. And like I said, with movies and TV, they're more focused on the visual aesthetic.
But with that, you're taking the Weird West and you're putting it in space. What does that get you in between there? That gets you these weird weapons, these cool devices, these things that people in the Weird West, the Wild West wouldn't have, which is why.
Everyone familiar with Briscoe Kennedy?
Woo!
I love it. Alright, Grease. This is what I was talking about, the web series. It was incredibly steampunk and didn't know it was. They were trying to create a fantasy. This was a couple creators up in Canada, and they were in Vancouver, which is where a lot of like the sci-fi series film, like Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe, Smallville films up there. So they had all these access to like a lot of people in the industry, and they just like, oh, we want to like get these people to come out with us and film out in the woods for a little while. And they had this idea like, oh, visual aesthetic. And they basically went online and just kind of like researched the aesthetic and didn't really know there was even a movement about it until after they shot their first episode. And someone was like, this is incredibly steampunk. Oh, so they kind of researched a lot more. The idea is basically it's a fairy tale, but it's incredibly industrial revolution feeling to it. It's the same kind of like steps of the fairy tale, it's the same basic hero journey kind of thing, but in a incredibly steeped in visual aesthetic. Like every frame of the show is incredibly steampunk, from the wardrobe to the interaction, from the weapons to the mechanical men that are chasing her, the village that they go into, and again, they have access to a lot of really cool like shooting places because of all the shows that shoot around their area.
I remember the first time we saw it, we were like, where, how do you, oh God, I wish we could.
This is amazing! Oh. The production value is amazing. They actually got picked up by Sci-Fi just for doing...
It's a web series 10 episodes.
Yep. They did 2 episodes, Sci-Fi picked them up, they reshot their first, or they redid their first episode using a lot of the same footage. But again, like when I got a chance to meet them and interview them, they weren't aware of steampunk when they sat down and started. They were, again, just like, oh, we want this visual aesthetic. We like goggles and gears and these kind of things, and that Industrial Revolution feel, and that anachronism of what if the Industrial Revolution happened in this mythical place, and you know, it was twisted this way, so there were mechanical men and replacement body parts, and all this stuff that they thought was really cool, and then it was like when someone turned to them like, that's really steampunk. They started researching and adding to it, so you can actually see the progression from each episode a little bit. Next. Yay, movies!
Nice. Yes.
The creators coined the term for this one, Steampunk.
Which is fine, because again, Baron's mentioned several times, we have that steampunk is what? Relative.
There's a lot of things fit
So
under
steampunk fits under the umbrella.
Obviously, I mean, the aesthetic is incredibly steampunk. The idea of a post-apocalyptic world and then very steampunk mechanical men running through with goggles for eyes. Exposed stitching to show that they were handmade instead of, you know, machined out piece. And even the villain, which was supposed to be like, you know, the machine, created things from what it found around. Like even that had a very incredible DIY feel to it. Like instead of like churning out Terminators that all look perfectly shine, it like literally grabbed trash from around and was like, I'm gonna take this skull and this thing and this fan and make a thing, go kill it. Which is incredibly steampunk. Is everyone familiar with these characters?
Yep.
I have every poster except the 7. So, once upon a time, someone said, like, well, how do you know a steampunk? Like, oh, a steampunk is someone who likes Wild Wild West.
Now,
that's kind of true.
No, okay. I found so often when trying to describe steampunk to people, they look at me like I'm, you know, from outer space, and I'm like, oh, I hate this. Have you seen Wild Wild West? Yeah, that's steampunk. Oh, yeah, but that movie sucks. But it's an easy way to describe to other people what steampunk is because
visually, it's visually steampunk. Like,
I mean, come on,
steam-powered villain.
come on.
Kenneth Brindle.
I think that's a little obvious.
Hold on. What's way better than this? The movie. TV show. Who knew there was this TV show?
We're in an audience participation.
Did Will Smith rap in that too?
Yes, he did. It was delightful.
That would be anachronistic.
But the thing I say about this movie, and the same thing with The Victorian Gentleman, is visually it's the movie itself might not be that great, but it's fun to watch, and it's like a good popcorn movie, and it's visually I like watching this just to see what I didn't see the last time. Like they put so much time and effort into making this thing so visually impressive. It's like, well, you see something in it, you just next. So as much as Wild Wild West was a bad movie that had a steampunk visual element, this is an incredibly good movie with an incredible visual aesthetic to it. This is a French film, so we use subtitles. Deal with it. Don't like subtitles, deal with it. It's an incredible movie. But it has incredibly steampunk elements. The brain in a jar, the mad scientist that is doing something horrible. The mechanical man with mechanical eyes that are. This is a film starring Ron Perlman, and it was one of his earlier roles. He had to learn French just for this role. And he basically plays a circus performer who's a big strongman who has to go in search of his little brother who gets stolen by the mad scientist. He teams up with a little Swedish girl to go and get his brother back, who is the mad scientist is trying to dream.
He can't dream. He's trying to steal children's dreams.
So,
I really thought I was getting a different movie when I saw all of these. I'm like, alright, I guess I'll watch this where a guy abducts the children. Oh, this is actually kind of sweet.
It's creepy. It's good.
It is
It's a lot
scary,
better than I thought it
the
would be.
visual aesthetic for it is amazing. Just all the texture and like the environments that they're in, all the places they go are just so absolutely delightful and incredibly steampunk. And the storyline is amazing. Like it's just really amazing character development, really amazing interactions. So I definitely recommend it.
Hold on. Wait.
Oh, cool.
Rating?
Well, if we go ill.
Oh, okay. Wait!
Anyway, tap it out.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about steampunk music. Steampunk music is, like all of steampunk, still kind of defining itself.
There is no such thing as steampunk music.
Thank you for the big warning. With steampunk music, the best way to look at it, one of the more obvious interpretations. Well, I'll go ahead and introduce it when I get to introduce it. The one of the best. Wow, that's bright in my eyes. One of
There you go.
You notice how he doesn't try and pull focus from anyone else's speaking.
Okay, all set.
So, steampunk music is still kind of finding itself. It's taking a lot from Tom Waits, it's taking a lot from people like the Dresden Dolls. What really defines steampunk music is that level of anachronism. There is a level very much like Brechtian theater. I don't know if anyone has anyone actually heard of Bertolt Brecht? Okay.
Yay!
Awesome.
No.
He is a director-writer from Germany who became very popular right after World War I, when obviously Germany lost. They really don't have a very good track record with world wars. It's really. So they had lost, and cabarets and very small theaters that were very almost dystopian and giving people a reason to live and be happy were popping up. And so he took what people thought of theater, which was a very big and over-the-top and absolute realist, absolute Stanislavski, everything must be as real as possible. And Brecht decided, okay, I'm going to put a tarp up in the back and get a guy on a ladder, and instead of having tons of snowflakes that look like perfect snowflakes fall down, he's going to throw mashed potato flakes at the actors. But the reason that I bring him up, the reason that I bring him up is because what he would do is he loved musicals, specifically because they don't make sense. Why are people singing in the middle of this show? So he would write music, and it would be crazy. It would be a lot of, he would use instruments that people did not use. He would use zithers. He would use a lot of the violins. He would use a lot of the, him and Kurt Weill were very close, and he would write a lot of the music for Bertolt Brecht. So, a lot of what people consider to be steampunk music is modeled after a lot of the cabaret style. They either go in that direction, they go in the direction of, say, old sea chanties like the Decemberists, or, like this next person coming up, it is him, right?
Professor.
Good. Okay.
Well, when you were saying sea shanties, that comes last.
Okay, well, I'll get there.
Okay, good.
I'm just letting you know.
Second.
That comes at some
Anyways.
point. Or, you could do something very different and very original, like this first person that we're going to show you. His name is Professor Elemental. Yep. Who raps about being a proper English gentleman.
Volume up, go.
Oh,
We're
it's
gonna-
music for the deaf. Real rock.
Maybe you'll get to hear some steampunk
Make
music.
volume up now. Yeah, that's good.
Is your computer loud?
You're gonna kill
Or
us all.
not?
Right.
People sitting right next to the speaker might want to.
Alright.
Is your computer on mute?
Ow! Don't do that with these.
Are you on the right audio?